Welcome back. Final mile. We got a few questions here today coming from YouTube comments. And I think we had one from Facebook as well. But keep sending them our way. We'll keep answering them as they come in and they're relevant. But make sure to check out all of our other content as well, freight360.net. You'll find the Freight Broker Basics course there if you're looking for an educational option. And please check out all of the sponsors in the description box to help support the channel. You've got QuickScope for carrier verification of ID and location. You've got Levity for email and AI integrations and all kinds of awesome stuff there. Blue Book for produce and lumber marketing and lead generation, and DAT for all your load posting and analytics and whatnot. So we'll get right into it here today. Our first question was it a YouTube comment or someone emailed it over?
I was YouTube.
About accidents. So how do you handle a situation when there's an accident on one of your loads? This is different from a claim where like something just got damaged in transit. Accidents are, depending on the severity, can throw a whole new level to an oops in the freight world. So I'm curious your take on this, but the first thing that I'm always trying to figure out when this happens is is the driver okay? What's the severity of it? Because I've seen everything from hey, driver ran into a concrete pole at the driver's or the customer's location to fatality in a crash. I've seen the whole range of them, and dude, when someone gets seriously hurt or there's a fatality, it hits you weird. It hits you real bad.
It still upsets me. The one that I ran into, and this is probably 9 years ago now, but even telling that makes me choke up and feel.
So why don't you kick this one off here with, how do you handle the accident situations?
My first step is just trying to understand what's happening. And I would say what is super important, imperative, is that you are documenting all of this. And it's, again, all in your TMS. I can't stress this enough. How many smaller companies people are well, I got it in an email thread, or I got it in a chain over there, right? Nobody else in your company can see your inbox. So you need to take whatever correspondence, whatever you have, and upload that into your TMS so that you can break down and write down exactly what has occurred by time, step by step. I think that's your first step, is just assessing what the situation is, documenting it, getting a clear understanding from the driver usually first. Maybe you get the information from the shipper, same thing. I'm hey, want as much information as possible. If there are cameras on site, if it happened at the shipper, hey, do you have any footage of this? Can you please let me know what time this occurred? Because I've seen scenarios where a shipper's oh, this driver did this, and we find out when we're going through asking more questions that they don't even know who did it. They don't really know when it happened. They can't verify that it was this driver versus another one. So again, just really step one is finding out what does everybody know, and meticulously writing this down for yourself. This time we know this, at this time we know this, and you're usually going to get two sides of the story, right? Either the shipper and the receiver and the driver. And then first just trying to understand. And I think to your point, the first move in this is empathy, right? Trying to understand it from their points of view, not arguing, whether it's the shipper or the driver. Hey, just genuinely caring enough to go, hey, just walk me through what's happening so I can help try to resolve this for everyone, right?
Yeah.
If you start that conversation with, oh my God, what did you do? I can't believe this. My customer's yelling at me. One, it makes all of it harder. You're going to get less accurate information and you're going to create more work for yourself, right? So taking a deep breath, bringing yourself down, even though your customer might be screaming or yelling and it could be a very stressful scenario, the more you can take a beat, get up, walk away from your desk, walk outside, take a deep breath for a minute, come back in, and then make the conversations or make the phone calls.
Yeah. So I want to talk through the tactical side of this, outside of, is everyone okay and whatnot? Because now you have to figure out, well, what happens now? So we definitely want to make sure your communication with all the parties is very good, right? Get your customer updated and whatnot, because now you have to find out, is there damage to the product, or is it just, hey, they got in a little fender bender and they can send another truck in?
Yeah.
Yep.
You got 3 or 4 things, right? Is there damage to property? Is there damage to the vehicle? Is there damage to the cargo? Was anybody injured? Not in that
Yep.
order. Like you would go injured driver, obviously,
Yeah.
first.
Yep.
Cargo, probably how's the truck, and is there any damage at the site?
So, because you're, and we can't give every possible scenario here, but you can look at possible solutions here. So, let's say you've got like totaled product, right? Well, that's going to be part of your claim there. Do you have partially damaged product because it shifted or whatnot? Again, that's part of a claim. Now, how does this product going to get to where it's going?
Well, there's the third one too, which is even if you have like all of it being damaged, then you've got to see, is there salvage value, right? Like, are you still able to take this somewhere to get some value, even if all of it is been damaged?
So really what you have to do here is you have to figure out, what are we doing with the freight now? And depending on what that is going to determine, how you're going to handle the next steps. Because the carrier, if it's an owner operator and it's just them, right, and they can't drive their truck, well, now we've got to look at finding another carrier to either haul that trailer if the trailer is still good, or we might have to get it towed somewhere, offloaded, reloaded, and have another carrier move it. You might have a larger carrier that maybe this happened right in their domiciled town, and they're like, yeah, we'll just send another truck out there. We'll swap the trailers, all good. Or maybe it's so minor that the driver's like, I just got to go get I ended up popping my tire. I just got to get, some maintenance done at the truck stop, and we'll be rolling down the road. It just really all depends. Like we had one yesterday where a driver's tire blew out, and it was as simple as he just had to go to a Love's truck stop and get it fixed, and they're rolling down the road. So, but yeah, this is this stuff all goes into the claims process. This is why you have cargo insurance that covers the actual goods, the commodity on the truck, and then you've got your liability insurance that the carrier has for auto liability if they caused damage to someone else and whatnot. But yeah, it all depends. I mean, I've seen everything from I've truck that blew up into flames and like burned everything to the ground, and then it's a huge mess. Like you're not salvaging any of that; it's more of a cleanup at that point. So,
and then again, to just take that all the way. No, I think just to take that all the way to the end for anyone is that, like, again, if there's damage, like Nate said, to the cargo, it's going to go on the cargo policy of the carrier. If there was damage to property, it's going to go on their auto policy, right? Your insurance as a freight broker typically doesn't come into play. And the thing to remember, or as you're going through the process, is this is also why it's super important to let the carrier know you're trying to also resolve it for their benefit, not just your customer, because you need the carrier involved in the process. If the carrier is not responding to their insurance company, you can't get updates on the insurance the way the carrier can, because you aren't that insurance company's client. You do not have any policy with them. The carrier does. So the carrier is going to have to participate and send these things to their insurance company to move the claim forward in any instance. So working together is absolutely one of the most important things. If you start with conflict and they just start dragging their feet, these things could take months before the carrier is even responding to their insurance company.
Yeah, I want to add one last thing in. So we talked about if you have to have another trailer or another company come haul the trailer. If you're in a situation with trailer interchange where, one and trailer interchange insurance where one company's insurance policy covers equipment from another motor carrier. So we had one where, and this was a tire blowout as well. We had one carrier hauling another carrier's trailer, and the tire on the trailer blew out, right? So the driver's like, hey, broker, can you, like, I need $400 to get this tire replaced.
Yep.
And we're like, well, why are we paying it? And the driver's like, well, it's not my trailer, and the tire blew out. Well, did you run over something? No, it just went out. So it goes to the shop, and the shop report is like, the tread was at 0. Like, it was a poorly maintained trailer. So we go to the carrier who owns the trailer, and they're like, yeah, our agreement doesn't cover any maintenance. That's, on whoever's hauling it. And so we got everyone like pointing fingers like the Spider-Man meme.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out like, well, who's ultimately responsible here? And what ended up, I believe, happening was the carrier was responsible because part of the contract is for them to have their equipment supposed to be in
up
good
to some
condition
standard
when it's being used by somebody else. So, But yeah, that's important if you're dealing with trailer interchange. But anyway, not to go down a rabbit hole, we'll move on to our next question here. Hey guys, I'm about to launch my own brokerage in a couple months. What are some softwares that are worth the money, and what type of software can I cheap out or get away with? For example, an RMIS, Carrier 411, TMS, since I won't have income coming in for a few months. All right. We got a whole episode on our favorite technology and a lot of content on technology, so we'll try to keep this one brief. My rule of thumb is don't buy something until you need it and try to bootstrap your way. So for example, like a TMS, there are cheap or free versions that you can utilize until you're ready to upgrade or pay for a more expensive one. All right. I think things that you cannot cheap out on, if you don't have a carrier network, you need a load board, right? Like we see people trying to cover freight in our Facebook group, and I get it. Excuse me. But we got a link in the show notes. DAT, you get 10% off your first year, right? There's like 3 different levels, different tiers of it and whatnot. You need to have a load board. You're not going to have any access to the market or any insights on the market
Pricing.
conditions or lane rates and whatnot if you don't have a load board. So you don't need to have every load board out there, but like if you just get DAT to start off, that's one that I think you need. Carrier vetting, you need some way that you're vetting carriers. I've seen people that are like, yeah, we're just going to use the FMCSA's data. Well,
My gut.
it is very they're going to rely on FMCSA data and work directly with an insurance company to pull insurance data. There are super affordable carrier vetting options out there that will handle insurance, carrier vetting, all that stuff for you. Like Highway, for example, you don't have to have the whole kit and caboodle with onboarding and everything. But if you just have their lowest level, you can see, all right, I've got all their inspection history. I've got all their insights. I've got all of their, authority information and reports about them and all this stuff. Like you don't have to go the top tier level, but I think it's really important to have access to the market with load boards. And I think the carrier vetting is really important. I think where you can get away is like your cheaper or free version of a TMS at first, a free version of a CRM like a HubSpot or something like that. Manual accounting or the cheaper accounting stuff. I'm trying to think, what else am I missing here technology wise that you can point
I
out?
think you pretty much hit them, right? Like if I had to bare bones a brokerage, right? Like I would probably go with a free version of like Ascend at first. It's good enough that you should be able to do that for just about anything. I would definitely
Again,
have
like just to add in here, you don't know if you're going to succeed or stick with it.
correct.
Right.
So, and again, like we've done this a lot with a lot of clients, and I'm like, that's what I suggest. I'm like, hey, take a look at Ascend, and I think Rose Rocket had a freemium
They do
version.
too, yeah.
I kind of point them at those two.
Yep.
I'm like, you definitely need, and here's even cheaper, right? Is one, you're going to need a CRM because your first few months you're prospecting more than you're quoting. So, like to me, get a free CRM or a free version of HubSpot or $20 version so you can organize your leads and follow up with them. That's where you're going to spend your first few months. Once you've got some prospects that are asking you to quote loads, then pull the trigger on DAT. Now, all of a sudden, because you need to quote, you need DAT because you need rates and you need to access the market. Now I'm going to pay for DAT. Now, if I'm going to start covering loads, I'm immediately going to probably pick up Carrier 411 because it is a little cheaper than Highway. But if you've got any budget, I would as soon as possible get the low level of Highway because you are going to be a target as a new broker for fraud. They're going to see your credit history on the load board when you post loads up. Every fraudulent double broker is going to be reaching out to you and trying to steal your freight. So having Carrier 411 at a minimum when you're covering loads, if at all possible, Highway, I think is the second thing.
Yeah.
And the factoring thing, you're not really going to get charged. Like, again, we usually send people to Haul Pay because, again, depending on where your credit is and things, like you're going to need that lined up pretty quickly, but that's not really a cost.
Yep. Good answers there. That's a good question. Last one here is, as a broker, does a customer request that you make your own bill of lading or BOL? It depends. So I have always seen this as a value add, is that if the customer's like, hey, can you make a BOL? It's like, yeah, I'll get it all prepared for you. You don't have to worry about filling everything out. We'll get it all taken care of. You can usually generate one right out of your TMS. If not, there's billoflading.org, I believe. We have a template on our website, freight360.net, as well, under the resources downloadable section. But the BOL, that's that legal document that follows the shipment from origin to destination, right? A lot of times the shipper will produce it. Sometimes the broker will prepare it and send it to the shipper, but it starts there. Once it gets loaded, the shipper is signing off. Here's what we had loaded. The driver signs, they're accepting. Here's what's on my truck, and then the receiver signs, here's what I'm accepting as delivered, right? And if there's a damage, you're going to annotate that, or if something's missing, you annotate that. But yeah, you can create a bill of lading. There's no law that says you can't. There's no law that says you have to. If a customer asks if you can do it, by all means, yes, I would just make sure that if you're filling it out, since it is the legal paperwork that follows that shipment, make sure you understand exactly what the commodity is, what the quantity is. Because a lot of times, if let's say something is like palletized and you have the wrong number of pallets on there, well, when it gets to the receiver and they're counting it and they're like, well, this says they were supposed to be 18 and there's only 17 on it, or whatever the case might be, right? The other thing too is like when it gets signed, like even if you create it for your customer, they should still be reviewing it and annotating anything additional on there. Like, was it shipper load and count? So the shipper's verifying it and the customer or the driver's not seeing it. Any details like that, you still need to go through the process, but who generates it doesn't really make a difference. You got anything to add in on that?
Yeah, blind BOLs and double blind BOLs. It's not uncommon for a shipper or your customer to not be the place that is actually where you're loading the product, and they have you create a BOL where they don't want the place you're picking up from or delivering to know who sent that order.
Yep.
So a blind BOL is usually where it's going to. They don't know where it came from. And a double blind is neither side knows where the product is coming from or going to.
Yeah, and why does that happen is typically they don't want to lose business. So if let's say I'm a distribution company and I'm going to drop ship a product from one of my suppliers right to one of my customers, I don't want them to see where it's coming from because they might just cut me out of the,
Yes.
Why am I going to go to you? I'll just go right to them, right?
Yep.
That's why you
put it in
you
the
have
place they're getting the product. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
Well, if you're charging me a margin and you just shipped it from Acme Supply, I'm going to call Acme Supply and see what they'll charge me to send this order next week.
Yep, exactly. Good questions, though. Keep them coming our way. Final thoughts?
Whether you believe you can or believe you can't, you're right.
And until next time, go Bills.